Hello, welcome to my shop again. I've had a beautiful cherry burl that I was able to work with here and do a calabash shaped bowl. There's some challenges here in doing this kind of a bowl, so stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to use another piece of that same burl that I did the last bowl in, only this time we're going to make the rim of the bowl facing towards the bark edge. Going to do something a little different. I've done many of these startups on my YouTube channel. If you want to go back and look at that, some of the ways that I've handled the startup, but I'm going to do this kind of fast forward. I'm going to put it between centers on my balance point with my glue block and go through the roughing out real quick and fast and easy for you from a little different perspective with the view away from me and not so close up. I start everything between centers as usual and go on my balance point. I got to adjust it a few times to get it perfect, get the lathe speed up. Get a good secure grip on it, jimming the drive teeth there, and make sure you wear a face shield. Just roughing it out, getting it down to a cylinder. Check it often, make sure there's no cracks in it. Preparing for my glue block surface, getting the area ready to put the glue block on the bottom there. Get rid of the little nub. Know where to put my glue. Use thick CA glue only. Don't use any medium or thin. Okay, once I get the glue on, it only takes a couple minutes, so good time to sharpen. You see I take the handle off my gouge to sharpen it. Gives you better control. Take the tailstock away. Get her right on there. Now I can true up the outside one more time. Make sure there's no cracks. Everything is cool. Just a gourd. This is not a calabash gourd, but a butternut squash. But the idea is that we're going to have a really nice rounded bottom here. And many of the calabash shaped bowls are made where the bowl just starts to get undercut a little bit, like the last one that I did out of the other piece of this cherry burl, and just undercut it a little and stop it there. Well, I'm going to take it up a little bit more so that it starts to reveal this little OG here of concave versus convex shape. And I need to be careful when I do that because I want the natural edge to be completely above the transition between convex and concave. And so I'll show you what I mean here on the drawing board a little bit. So now I've got it on my faceplate with the sacrificial glue block, and then my wavy burl. And I've got this roughed out so that it's running true and just took the little bit of the back away. All right. So now what I want to do is make sure that the transition of my calabash comes at the low spot of the natural edge. Okay. So I'm going to have my calabash is going to start, if you visualize there's a high spot here as that's spinning around, right? I'm going to start my calabash here and make sure that the transition starts below the lowest part. Okay, that way this transition will start in 360 degrees of the rotation, no matter where you're, what side, front, back side that you're looking at the vessel, that you'll see this little reveal, this little ogee calabash shape in the vessel. If I start the calabash out here, then at the low spot, this will just look like a regular bowl. It won't look like a calabash shape. Okay? So I don't want to do this. So I want my calabash shape to start to transition back here, not up here. All right? So I've got two low spots here and here, and two high spots here and here. Okay? So I'm going to transition that calabash so that the largest diameter is going to be back in here someplace in a lower quadrant, and I'll have a bit of a lip with the concave convex area starting up here. Okay? There we go. Now we're starting our transition just a little bit in front of where the natural edge is going to be. Okay, so far now I'm liking that shape. I've got the little ogee here way back beyond the low part of my bark. Here's the low part of the bark on the other side, and the ogee starts there. Nice rounded bottom. I'm going to make a bottom that has a very, very small foot, or maybe even no foot at all. The gourd has no foot at all, the calabash gourd. The calabash shape has kind of a spiritual connotation or spiritual background. In the good old days in Pacific Islands, they didn't have utensils, and so they used gourds to eat with, and they would just sit them in the sand, and so the rounded bottom just sit in the sand when they were eating. So there's a method to the madness there of using this calabash shape to honor the natives of the Hawaiian Islands and the Pacific Islands. Well, let's see. This was my goal. Did I come anywhere near that shape? I think I might have come close. Close enough anyway. On the inside, we just want to get the wood out. Easiest way is just with a push cut, and doing it in notches like that makes it easy and fast. Just slow down a little bit so you see the size of the shavings. It's really fun to peel off shavings like that with the wet wood. These are all bevel supported cuts. It's very easy. The lathe and the tool rest is taking all of the forces. Measure often so you know where you're at. Here on the outside I do a little shear scraping to clean that up, and very, very nicely cleaned up. The inside I can't do that with, but we're going to do it in stages, 1 little inch at a time, so that we can measure and get the wall thickness uniform and not have any vibration. Once we get down with one stage, we go down in and never go back. We're not going back anymore. This became a very challenging piece. If you haven't done something like this before, let me explain why it's so challenging. In my methods anyway, I want to make sure that I keep a bevel supported cut at all times. And so taking my my little mock-up wood model here, the bevel support is fine when I first start, and the handle is in a good position. As I get down into this convex area and I have to swing my handle away from me, it starts to hit the rim of the bowl. and I can only go so far because of the blunt angle of my bowl gouge. All right. At some point there, my bevel will be in a position where it's going to hit. All right. Now, how do I keep going and still have a bevel supported cut? For the next section, I'm going to use my spindle gouge. My spindle gouge has a steeper grind on it. That angle is steeper. All right. So now I can get in there and finish this arc to some extent, and my spindle gouge can reach, because of the steeper grind, down in there. Okay. Now there's a certain point where the spindle gouge is going to fail again, and I'm going to start to hit here when I come around that corner. Okay. And I got down in there so far, and even with a bent tool rest inside the vessel, I was starting to dangle off the tool rest so far that it started to get hard work and in a little bit touchy, because I'm exceeding the limits of my tools. Okay, so then at that point, when I got down in here and I had some waste wood left over in here, I switched to my hollowing system with my carbide cutter that was slicing through the fibers cleanly, so I made a nice clean cut in there. Plus I had the laser to work with to measure the wall thickness through the bottom, and I could make that nice and perfectly about 3/16 thick. Okay, so I needed 3 different tools. I needed a bowl gouge, I needed a spindle gouge, and I need my boring bar system to do this this whole project. This area, the first couple inches of the mouth area where all of the wobble is, I could actually lower my handle and get in there with a shear scraping cut. So this first part of this was just perfectly clean and nice. I could start sanding it out with about 320 sandpaper. The inside cuts, because I'm reaching over the tool rest so far, I had some minor tool marks in there. No torn out grain because I'm slicing through the fibers cleanly, but I had a few little tool marks left over in there that I had to go sand with the sanding discs on my drill to get rid of. But a little bit challenging because it's so tall, with the mouth opening coming in rather than the open bowls that I usually do. So a little different process is needed. Now I have the outside all sanded down 600 grit. I've cleaned up the rim and got all the bark off nice. The inside's all sanded completely. So now I have to reverse it. And to use my friction drive with the tailstock method of reversing, I had to build on a little extension. The vessel is too tall. It would hit my headstock if I used my normal little glue blocks or waste wood that I have left over from my hollowing process. So I had to just put a piece of scrap wood on that I had left over for something else and extend this out so that I can bring that up. Okay, so now I'm going to put a pad on here so that I don't damage the inside of my bowl. Bring my tailstock up. The tailstock pressure is just enough to hold it. It's driving with the friction. We're going to use light cuts and slow cuts so that we don't tax this too much. So we're just going to get this waste wood away and shape the outside a little bit up to a very small foot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out and support my sponsors, Thompson Tools, Hunter Tools, and Starbond. See you next time.